Okay, today we are going to do an academic presentation I will do for Financial Planning Association in 2019. I have some courses, right? How one of my best friends work at William Patterson University and we work with Professor Evansky. So it's a really interesting topic. However, there's just a lot of details, a lot of rules. So if you get lost on the details, it's totally fine, but let's try to capture the main idea. So first of all, there are some studies already. So first one we analyze will be cash flow reserve strategy. This is FIFA 2013. Take a look at this strategy and then whether it's good or not. Then Morgan Stanley has some white paper on time market strategy. Merrill Lynch has something on goal-based market strategy. There are the benefits. That's what they talk about. However, we realize that it seems everyone is doing their own strategy. I guess that's what investments is, right? It's like secret box. You don't really want to push out, and then the others know. But that's not how it works. Okay. In computer science, they publish everything online, like in security. Right? This is probably better if everyone knows what you are doing, so that if something goes wrong, you can defend it. And then, so we realize there's no well-established guideline, and then the implementation looks very different. So when the implementation is very different, it's like if you have a mechanical product, right? Like a car engine. If you have different implementations, right, it's different products. Okay. So first of all, some decision steps for bucket strategies. So first of all, it's called the bucket, right? It's how many buckets do you have, and then what is the purpose? What is your initial asset allocation? So the cash flow reserve says only one cash bucket, and then you have the second total portfolio bucket. However, in the time bucket strategy, each one will just associated with the time periods, right? And then we have goals. So if it's a goal bucket strategy, then what is your goal? You just need to identify the goal and then identify different buckets to find different goals. And so the second part, which is taking less and then gets muddy, is maintenance. How do you maintain it, right? It's like a mechanical product, and then things will change, right? How do you maintain it? So one thing would be when the money is getting used, right, and then the bucket gets empty, how do you refill it? It will be either using other buckets to replace it or retire the previous, because most buckets have the cash position, right? So when those are used, do you refill them or you just retire them? Some of them just retire them. For example, if you have, let's say, take some ladder bond portfolio, for example. So every year, right? So if you have a future contract, you want to roll it, right? Or if you have a ladder the future contract strategy, so you simply just let the first one expire, right? And then you roll to the next one. The new one becomes, the next stage becomes your new one. Another example would be ladder the city strategy, 3 months, 6 months, right? You just let the first three months expire, and then your 6 months becomes your new 3 months. So that's one strategy. Or you can just leave, right? If you have two, like in cash reserve strategy, if you have one cash bucket and then one total portfolio, so you will use the cash, right? Then how do you refill them? You can just use automatic refill, kind of tell them every year, right? In the beginning, you refill it. That's just one way to do it, or every 6 months. Or you can do income approach. What is income approach? So we have some money generating portfolio, right? They have, let's say, interest or dividends. Those are the income generated from the portfolio, especially in fixed income, right? Strategies. And then you use those money to put into your cash position, okay? Or like you can refill when it's rebalanced, right? So when you have some asset allocation stock bond mix, then you need to rebalance it. Following your rebalance rules, whenever you rebalance it, you are going to refill the bucket. Okay, and certainly we have something market-based, or those are market timing. So when the market is up or down, so how can that impact when you feel it? Or you can just personalize that, um, or like just other approaches. Another thing to consider in those bucket strategy will be the asset allocation, because over time, your asset allocation will change, right? So you can either choose to update it according to the time horizon, right? When individuals get older, they probably to have less equity allocation, or you can just let it be, just don't do anything about it. So this is kind of just buy and hold, that kind of strategy. Same in rebalancing, right? You can choose not to rebalance it, or you can just let it automatically rebalance following the rules, or the rebalance can be conditional on the market conditions. So in this, there are a lot of strategies, and then a lot of detailed rules as we mentioned, right? So I think that's one of the main reasons why we want to look at this. It becomes very necessary to understand all the essentials underlying. And then for this research, we did some analysis. Our analysis are mainly focused on three strategies. One is 2013 cash flow reserve bucket strategy. The other is time bucket strategy from Mary Lynch, I think. Let me go back. See. From Morgan Stanley, okay, I'm sorry. Time bucket strategy from Morgan Stanley's white paper, and then we have a goal-based strategy from Mary Lynch. We just follow their rules to do it. Okay, you can change the rules, okay, or the decision steps within those strategy. You can get very different results. Okay, our research is just for illustration purpose, and then do some basic comparison of those. So it gets very detailed, right? And then how do you measure them? So there are a lot of kinds of way you can measure them. We choose to use sustainable spending amount. So basically, how much money you can spend if you want to have a certain percentage of success rate. And we also have distribution of portfolio and balance. Right? It's like at the end of year 30, how much money you have, right, in your account. We also take a look at the sequence risk, how that impacts the performance of those. We did some tolerance of transaction costs. Just for your information, I'm gonna not report it because it seems getting cheaper and cheaper. We did assume 120 transaction costs on the portfolio rebalancing. Also look at if investor overreaction using return chasing, documented in investment literature, how that impacts those three strategies' performance. We do it using a case. So this is a client age 65 with 30 years of retirement horizon. We assume they have $2 million financial assets. We implement the cost basis of $1 million so that tax can be considered. We also assume they have moderate risk tolerance level and some other goals. Those months numbers, again, this is 30 years, right? 30 years equal to 360 months. And then those are just future cash flow in future. It's in Excel, right? Months 1 to 360, and then all of them. Yeah, originally this is done, the prototype is done in Excel, and we code it into R. I'm working using Django to make a software out of this. 120 transaction cost. Okay, so whenever you have a rebalancing, we assume it's 120 transaction cost on two ways. Whenever you sell, it's 120. You buy, it's another 120. We have marginal tax rates assumption of 33%, and also capital gain rate of 15%. We assume equity and bond return Originally we used Monte Carlo log normal assumption, and then majority of this analysis we used historical assumption. But just to let you guys know, we did both. However, it's not reported here. But what is related here is the capital gain and then ordinary income. So for equity portfolio and bond portfolio, we separate the return into two parts so that they get taxed differently. Trust me, I did the coding part. It's just a lot of details, so I'm not gonna go over all of them. And I have the paper right here with me, so if there's some detail I forget when you ask, I can always look back, but I don't really promise that I remember all the details. Systematic withdrawal 60-40 portfolio rebalance at 5% deviation. We do see monthly rebalancing or monthly liquidation. So when you withdraw, right, so it's a lot of transaction cost, 240 every month involved into this. And then we get a cash flow reserve bucket strategy. We assume the first bucket for cash, second bucket is just total portfolio, is called total portfolio, and then it's basically systematic portfolio without balancing, right? They have 5% deviation. It will be refilled when you have less than 2 months income, and then the conditional on like positive returns on at least 2 asset classes. Okay, so that's, they have some conditional here. In last year, previous year, rolling return is positive, so that's just the refill strategy. And then we have a time bucket strategy here. So because this is more than a year, so based on my analysis, I don't really see any negative cash. You will not see negative cash positions. Okay, time bucket, first bucket 100% for 5 years, second bucket 50-50, 3 years, third bucket just 100% equity, and then just let it be there. No rebalance, you will retire and replace it. Okay. Goal-based bucket. So we just identify each goals, right? For the travel, we identified it's just cash. And then education for grandkids, we use 50-50 allocation. And then we have the remaining would be 60-40 rebalanced monthly liquidation. So so the third one for retirement, retirement money would be joining from this, right? Those would be just staying over there. Basically, this is like you put aside a large amount of cash, and then systematic you kind of put it here. It's very similar. Systematic withdrawal is within cash flow reserve bucket and then goal-based bucket. They just put more cash or more conservative portfolio side. So that's interesting about finance, right? They look very, they name it very different, but essentially it's the same water flow everywhere. So intuitively, we can just do some pre-results comparison, right? You don't need to look at any data. You can just see what it looks like. For systematic withdrawal, the asset allocation is very clear. For cash reserve, it's also very clear. It's just 60-40, and then when you cash aside time bucket, it changes, right? Because they don't really they retire those buckets, and then if you think about it, right, 10 years later it's all equity. So that's what it looks like. And then they don't plan to adjust it. So that's, again, I'm not here to judge which one is better. I'm here to provide information and then provide some analytical thinking toward what is really going on in those mechanical products. Go bucket strategy is also not necessarily clear because depends on where your goal is and then when, right? So if you have early goals versus later goals, you might have different allocation. It's similar to what I mentioned, right? If you think about risk tolerance, this probably match really good. This is probably fine, but this is not going to match well. This is probably match okay. Okay, I'll probably change this to moderate. Opportunity cost for systematic withdrawal, it's not good. They don't have any opportunity cost. Opportunity cost means you have a lot of money in cash. That's what it is, right? So this is just base scenario. Just give you guys some idea of what it looks like. We have sustainable monthly spending, and then we have the plan success rate. We can see that they look kind of very similar. However, we'll just look at cash reserve strategy, which should be very interesting to look at. However, because of the cash allocation, it seems it lacks, right, systematic withdrawal and then goal-based bucket. Again, goal-based bucket depends on your goals. It can be very different. It seems our goal-based bucket here is very aligned with systematic withdrawal just because we don't have a lot of really big goals, okay, just some travel and then education for grandkids. However, one thing we point out is the time bucket strategy. It kind of stands out, mainly due to, because this is historical rolling. This is historical rolling, and then the U.S. market has been doing great, right, over years. I think that's one of the main reasons, because if you think about it, it has very high equity allocation. So let's look at those numbers, right? How do we interpret it? First of all, we look at 95% success rate. If you go back to this, right, we have many of those plotted. Right here, we just pick this one, okay? Got it. Then 95% success rate. And then this part, look at the tail risk. Okay, financial risk manager. If you financial risk management in banks, right, they look at VaR. You can think these are the VaR, value at risk. I wouldn't really interpret that way, but it's very similar. So if you look at it, in the worst 1% case, you'll probably have negative net worth, right? Then really good case, you still have some money left 30 years later. And then we can see that it seems cash flow reserve does have a really good tail risk hedging if you look at it, especially compared with this. And then the goal-based, right? So cash flow reserve has better tail hedging benefit as compared with systematic withdrawal. We can consider goal-based to be very similar to this. And then in the 5%, they look very similar. Basically, on the tails, they are doing great. Okay, and then the median, right? And then the variation is much smaller. However, you will consider systematic withdrawal to be very similar to goal-based. However, the time bucket here, it seems they're doing great. Okay, so even though they had even in tails, they are doing great. Okay, so this is very counterintuitive, but you can always contribute that to recent. And then we also look at what if a retiree started in a bad year, right, of the market? What is the implication for that? We look at the 6 months, right, rolling return historically from 1926 to to today, 2016. I think we look at the worst 6 months performance and then start with the worst 6 months performance and see how that goes. It's still very consistent with previous finding. Time bucket strategy is still doing great. Maybe just because the in the time bucket, right, it's very conservative in the very beginning. However, toward the end, if it's better, it might be different. Basically, time bucket strategy also looks great. And then another thing would be, it seems like cash flow reserve is not doing well, right? And then we wonder, is it the whole story? Probably not, right? Maybe the cash flow reserve has really good behavioral benefits. What are those? So can we quantify it? We just compare with systematic withdrawal. This is yellow line is cash flow reserve. We just plotted. We just copy it from the previous plot. And then if you look at investors who is going to use systematic withdrawal, however, they will do market trading, right? When the market is down 15%, they will liquidate everything in cash. When the market is up 15%, they will buy back. What will happen to their performance? So it seems this is only scenario in our analysis that cash flow reserve can outperform those. But you made it based on a really strong assumption that investors with cash flow reserve are not going to pay out, okay, or they are not going to do return trading. So this is our conclusion. So again, I consider this to be a really interesting area. It has a lot of details. That's why the next step I plan to incorporate more behavioral components, and then plan to write a software about it using Python. So let me know if you guys have any questions, and I will continue working on this. And I think maybe you can add more, but essentially the underlying components are very simple. It just requires a lot of coding. Then so we can see that sustainable. This is our conclusion here. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay. I guess that's it. Okay, guys. I think I kind of know how to do it right now, and